Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the DENTAA Show Live. It is Sunday evening, and tonight is all about talking about community issues that affect our community. Before I delve into everything, I just want to say a big thank you to World Remit. It's the better way to send money. You can join up to 5.7 million people and send money back home to a loved one for school fees, for buildings, for just shopping or whatever. You can send money back home. So make sure that you go on www.worldremit.com and send that money back home to Ghana. Now, tonight's show, we're talking about grief. We're talking about losing a loved one. Tonight, I know we were supposed to talk about the legacy and reflect on our brother, Sam Mensah. But unfortunately, we want to leave the family to have their 1 week. Once they have the 1 week and we have more information for you guys, because I know there's a lot of people out there that want to find out how they can contribute, how they can help, how they can support, and what's happening with the funeral arrangements. But in our tradition, Ghanaian community tradition, we have a 1 week. So the 1 week will be next week, Wednesday, Wednesday coming up. And then we'll find out exactly where he's going to be buried. And hopefully we will be able to pay a tribute to him on our show next week, Sunday. And I'm hoping also that we'll have a family member that will join us to talk about, what's happened and, the arrangements for our dear brother, Sam Mensah, who's going to be dearly missed. What I can say to you guys is that he's definitely out of sight, but he's going to remain in our hearts forever. And that's something that I think that we all need to hold on to. He's definitely left a legacy and impact on all of our lives. Even if you came in contact with him for a day, you will leave with something with Sam. And we will talk about that. I'll talk about the conversations that I've had with him, even when he got to Ghana. We will share that next week, Sunday, and just pay a tribute to all the successes that he's been able to achieve and how his name is going to live on forever. But as I said tonight, we are talking about, to kind of look at the situation, we're going to be talking about grief. How do you deal with grief? How do you deal with losing a loved one? And I've got with me panelists who have lost either their mom, their dad, on the show to really express about what they went through and their stories of how they lost their mom, their dad. It's hard to talk about these things, so I really do appreciate my guests for coming on tonight's show, because it's not easy to talk about something so painful. I also have my Dr. Pamela. She's been on the show with the Goober Expo. She's a psychologist. And really, she's going to look at the other aspect of what people go through, the medical aspect of what people go through. So I think that is also very important to look at that. We've spoken to Dr. Pamela through the Goober Foundation, where we spoke about mental health, if I correctly remember. We had other doctors on there as well. So I just want to know where you guys are watching me from. Hello, Sam. Hello, Kwame. Esther. All of you that are watching. Apia Samuel. Welcome to tonight's show. Hello, Dominic. Yes, our thoughts and prayers are with the family. Thank you so much for sending that message through. But we will be having that tribute next week, Sunday, God willing, after the 1 week. We will definitely be contacting. We're in touch with the family, with Uncle John and everybody, but we will get more information when we do have the show. But tonight's show, have you had to grieve? And what did you go through? How did you deal with it? Have you lost a loved one? I think it's important for us to talk about these things, that we're not suffering in silence. Hello, Sally. Hope you're well. Hello, Akuya. Please do share your pages. Hello, Richard. Hi, Richard. Hello, Eunice. Thank you all for joining me on the show. Make sure that you share your pages. Millicent, hi sis Whistle. Thank you all for joining me on tonight's show. So I'm gonna start with Anna. Anna, I've known since she was little. She's now big now. She's a big girl. But she is a beautiful singer. And she unfortunately lost her mother a few years ago. And it was quite difficult because I knew her mum. I knew the dad more, Pastor Ifa, who is a pastor at Trinity Baptist Church. He used to be in the UK and he moved to Ghana. But I know it was difficult, very difficult for him when I've come into contact with him. So I'll get Anna to talk about what happened and how she was able to deal with the death of her mother at such a young age. How old was she when her mother died? And how she was able to deal with it, and how now actually she has set up her company for those who are dealing with losses. And so please welcome Anna Ifa to the show. Hi, Anna.
Hello. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, sis. How are you?
Good. Blessed.
Good. Anna, tell us about how you lost your mum. What happened? How did you hear it? How did you feel? And how you reacted to it?
Right. So I guess we're taking a trip down. So it all started in 2017. So my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer from the year before. She didn't tell us. I think that's one thing that I was a bit upset about, because I was like, I wish I could be with you through this whole process. You're going through it alone and you're not telling us. But obviously only my dad knew. So, I was in my master's. I literally just enrolled and I was doing my journalism. I was going for it. And I was also, a part of the Goober team. And, I think we're doing Goober Awards, and I was a market researcher at the time. And it was quite difficult because, got uni as well as doing the research and just various projects. So it came about to 2017 and she just decided to go to Ghana. And I was wondering, why are you going to Ghana? But she just saw it fit to be in Ghana at the time. So my dad came in and then decided to take her to Ghana. And it was around about February 17th. So it happened on February 17th and we were here. So we were told by our youth pastor at the time, and he came home with my uncle, and they all came and they were like, I know that your mom has been sick for a long time. And they were talking to my older brother and myself. So my younger brother wasn't even home. He was at uni, and they just told us. And honestly, I blanked out. It felt like an experience where I wasn't exactly there. It was so strange, and I just remember just crying. I just felt like I had an out-of-body experience. And eventually, one thing that really calmed me down, oddly enough, even in the heat of that day, I remember I was still able to send an email to my lecturer and say, my mom's just passed. What's the grieving process? And she was, you can tell that the email back was like, yeah, you get some time off. And I was just like, I don't know how I managed to logically think. At that moment, it was just like, I just have to get on with it. And it was just a get on with it attitude, because I was like, okay, now it's left with my brothers. My dad's back in Ghana. I'm now trying to, now they're going to call me the mother of the house. And that's what I was getting. And as much as it was a great title, it felt so draining, because I said I wasn't ready to be, I wasn't ready to grow up, basically.
Yeah.
And so in that time, I it was extremely difficult. I remember calling my older brother from uni and saying, I can't do this. I was in tears. I broke down and I said, honestly, I just can't do it. My older brother was just like, please do it. Go ahead. You can do it. And I was like, I can't. I still managed, and it was a miracle. Honestly, God really pulled us through, because I just don't see how I'm able to still sit here and actually carry on. And it's been great. I mean, the whole process has been interesting as well, because I've had family, the team, the Goober team, support me and my family and allowed us to grieve. And that's one thing that a lot of us should try to just allow those that are grieving to grieve. I think everyone's always asking for questions, asking, you know, how did this come? Just allow them to just breathe, because it's just overwhelming. You're really thinking, okay, so what happens now? And one of the things that really stuck out for me through that process is that my dad did tell me of a dream that my mum had before they went to Ghana. And I mean, this is obviously going into my Christian background. And so she had a dream of, you know, Jesus on the boat, and she was in white at the shore. And my dad's like, oh, you're not going yet. Don't worry.
Wow.
But it was at that moment that it kind of somehow clicked in for me, that I felt peace. I found peace at that point. As much as everybody literally was crying around me, there was a moment where I just, you know, sit back and be like, okay, I'm cool. I think I can, you know, I can get through this. And then as the years grew by, that's one thing about death. You'd think that it will just somehow ease away as the years go by, but oddly enough, it was getting tougher and tougher. It was like you'd sit in darkness. I remember times I would just sit in my room and want to not wake up the next day. I had like notes on my wall. I wrote on my sticky notes and stuck it on the wall and just said, God, if it's my time, can I just go, please? Because it's extremely painful that all the lifetime key events, just even a simple hug, you can't get it. And I realized that, you know what, I just have to fight the good fight by myself sometimes. You just got to pick yourself up. And from that point on, I knew that I needed to now just build some muscle and just get up. Because if I don't, no one's going to do it for you. And you realize that, you know, friends are there, but then they're not going to be there when you're home alone and having to deal with it psychologically. So
did you speak to anybody? Did you speak to a doctor, counselor? Did you speak to anybody at all?
That's something I did wish I did, and I didn't. I actually didn't. And I really wished that was something, and that was something I craved for. And it just didn't make sense how those avenues weren't available to me. I don't know. It felt like something that wasn't available. I don't know why I thought that way, but I just thought, oh, who am I going to speak to? This is really personal. So it helps.
You didn't feel like speaking to the pastors?
Only at the time, my youth pastor. But unfortunately, the only bedrocks I had were my aunties, a few close friends at the time. Sometimes it was just a case where they would just sit on the phone with me and I'll just be in tears. So they know that if I just call, all they have to do is just sit there, don't say a thing, and I'll just be in tears. And then I'll be like, okay, how are you? And they'll be like, yeah, I'm good. And they act like nothing's happened, which was actually so therapeutic, because it just seemed like sometimes people just always want to talk and feel that, you know, if I say something, it would be great and, you know, they can benefit from it. And it's great, but not at that moment. And it was just great to have a listening ear.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned at the beginning that, you know, your mum didn't actually tell you guys that she had breast cancer. How did that make you feel, knowing at the end that, you know, a mum that you was close to, you know, what would be the reasons why she didn't want to share it with you guys?
I saw it at the time in the sense that she wanted us to still stay focused because she probably knew how we would react. And I mean, looking back on it, I'd probably say she probably was right because of how we are with anything concerning our family. We are 100% attentive, and we will make sure that literally nothing gets in the way. So if I had been in uni, I would have dropped out and said, no, I'm going to carry on. And it's funny because I still carried on uni even after the funeral. They gave me the ability to carry on and, you know, finish my dissertation in September, when uni actually finished. And I was so grateful. So it's like there was a leeway period. Even though I was grieving, I had to weirdly forget that she passed away just to get through uni. It was a numbing experience, but it's looking back on it, I'm like, you know what? Every kind of level I'm getting at, I have to just progress. I have to become stronger. I have to be able to accomplish every dream. I can't stop myself because of one obstacle. There has to be more.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing that. We'll come back to you. I'm now going to go over to Jennifer. Jen is our vice chair for Guba. She's the head of Guba Expo, has been now for many years. And she lost her mum and her dad. And so I want her to share her story and her journey on how she was able to deal with the two deaths. I think they were quite close. You know, one died and then later on another one passed away. But I'll let her share and then we will take it from there. So hi, Jen.
Hi, Denta. Hi, Anna.
Hey,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you both?
We're good, Jen.
Good.
Jen, I know I feel as if you still grieve, right? I still feel that, you know, because a lot of the times, even now, you've got your mom and dad's picture on. I don't know whether there's something coming up, maybe their anniversary, birthday, or whatever. But I know that you constantly put your mom and dad on your DP. How long has it been since they passed away?
Okay, mum died in 2008 and dad died 2009. So literally a year apart. Yeah.
Tell us about that journey of your mum passing away, what happened and how you were able to deal with that. And then a year later, also deal with your dad's death.
Yeah, I mean, I was just listening to Anna, and it's amazing how much there are certain similarities in what I went through and the experience. My mum had various ailments over a number of years. She had cancer, so she also passed away from cancer. She had a first bout of cancer, and she kind of got through that. And I believe when you're dealing with cancer, you go through certain stages when get the final all clear. And I do recall, I think it was either the second or the third appointment she had in order to get the all clear. So you have to go through 3 appointments. And I think it was either the second or the third. She came back home. And I remember being in the kitchen with mum, helping her with the cooking and the usual stuff. I remember her standing by the cooker, and I was, I think, sitting down, sort of peeling potatoes. And, I was just chatting with her, Mum, you all right? How was it? How did the, appointment go? She had loads of doctor's appointments. So I remember asking her that. And she was a bit hesitant. She kind of said to me, oh, it was okay. But it's all about giving her a better chance at life. And I was like, what's that about? she wasn't really being straightforward. And, you know, I was staring at Mum. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And she couldn't really say it. She couldn't really say it. I mean, in theory, she was more or less telling us that it was terminal, you know, it was terminal. But she couldn't tell me. She couldn't actually say the words. And I do recall that she couldn't also look at me. You understand? I was waiting for that gaze, you know, that eyeball to eyeball, you know, that reassurance type thing. But she couldn't. And then she suddenly left the kitchen. Yeah, I just remember sitting there, looking at her leave the kitchen. And that was it. I was peeling potatoes. I had the knife in my hands, peeling potatoes. And you know what? I just sat there motionless, and I was like, hold on, what am I hearing? I mean, we didn't really talk about that moment again, but what we did do was talk about, you know, her appointments and, you know, the kind of treatment that she's been receiving and so forth. But that moment really stuck with me because I knew, she knew, we all knew that it was final. But what she did do, and I hear what Anna was saying, is that my mum was a nurse, by the way. So she's quite aware of things that are going on in her body and, you know, the processes and so forth. I think she sort of prepared herself and prepared us. So she didn't really talk about death in a negative way in the house. We just kind of got on with life. And then herself and my dad was alive at that time. They planned a trip to go to Ghana. So within no time of hearing this news, they planned a trip to go to Ghana. So Mum, Dad went to Ghana for I think it was about like 2 weeks or so. Yeah, for roughly 2 weeks. It was quite a quickly organized flight to Ghana. And she actually went to Ghana because she wanted to put things in place. Okay, so my mum's the eldest of like 8 brothers, and then she's got a younger sister, and she wanted to kind of inform them. Okay, and so she invited them all to a house in Ghana, sat them down, prepared food and so forth, and more or less told them to look after the house, to look after us, you know, and just to take care of things in her absence. Again, she didn't say things directly, but she was inferring that she may not come back. So when she did come back to London, she went through the treatment, the physiotherapy, the chemotherapy, the radiation and so forth. And yes, we had a hospice nurse in the house. I do remember one day, I look back at this and I chuckle because I think a hospice nurse must have come to my house, and it was probably like one of the first visits. And then when she knocked on the door, my dad must have opened it, and like she introduced and said who she is. And as soon as she said the word hospice, my dad went mad. He was like, "No, you're not coming to the house." Da, da, da. It was all denial of the actual reality of what's happening. But lo and behold, my mum was like, "Oh, Kwame, yeah," that kind of thing. What I do remember in sort of like prior to her passing was the fact that I used to spend a lot of time with her. Out of my siblings, I think I spent a lot of time with her. It was only myself and my younger brother at home at that time. And what we did do, we had conversations about death. Okay, so eventually we started talking about death, and Mum made it quite clear to me where she would like to be buried, how she would like her funeral, what she would like. You understand? And funny enough, even though we were talking about it, it was a natural conversation. You understand? So I was either in the middle of doing her hair or doing her toenails or something, just the usual mother and daughter type conversation. So I had that with me when she passed. And when she did pass, I sat my siblings down and I said to them that, listen, this is what Mum wanted. okay, and this is what we're going to have to do. You know, of course, you've got, you know, different people come with their own views. Oh, this is what we do. This is how it should be done. But like, nah. Sorry, no, because, you know, I remember, oh gosh, we had a particular auntie. She insisted that mum be dressed in white, like a wedding dress, and, you know, that whole shebang. And we were like, nah, that's not mum. Like, you know, and so, you know, I remember her sister, who had to fly down from Canada, I'm sorry, America. We went round, you know, and we got something that mum would like. You understand? So it's not even about what tradition says, but you know your mum, you know your relative, and we know that mum would have been smiling in terms of how we, you know, presented things.
But how difficult was that though? Because when you look at traditions, it's kind of really strict on how things are supposed to be done. And so how were you and your family, your siblings, be able to really maneuver that and say that actually, no, mum would want to be dressed like this. And mum actually told me this is how she wants everything to be done. And they'll look at you like you're the child here, you're not. So how did you know, how were you able to go through that?
It's quite interesting because, yeah, there were a few, you know, you see, okay, I think our situation, we had people that were very much understanding of, you know, us wanting the best for mum. So they, you know, my uncles were quite very liberal. You know, my auntie was down with whatever we say. You understand? My mum's sister. So, you know, they were there to support us and they were there to guide us. So if they felt that, no, this is really tradition, we need to stick to this, then they would kind of step in. But things like, you know, what mum would wear, what mum, you know, is able to wear, you know, they were like, listen, you go with what you wanted your mum to do. Because, I mean, I remember mum saying, oh, she wants a huge, big white coffin and, you know, she wanted to be buried in a certain place. And we were able to fulfill those things. You understand? And it was just beautiful. I mean, I do believe that in any death or situation, there will be some amount of conflict, but you just have to kind of just explain and express why you want to do it. It's not selfish reasons. All you're doing is thinking about what the person would like. And you're right, there are conflicts between maybe what the children would like and what the family would like. Because remember, I guess depending on the tribe, but Ghanaian traditions, you are bringing the body effectively back to the family or giving the body back to the family.
Yeah.
So, you know, we all needed to look at that. But thankfully, like I said, my mum's brothers, you know, yeah, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. And sisters.
So, you know, grieving your mum and then a year later, your father passed away. How were you able to deal with that and what happened to your dad?
Oh, wow. Dad was a shock. It was a shock to all of us. All I could say, like, Dad was there one moment, like he had been coughing type thing. Dad was a strong one to some extent. I mean, when I say strong, he didn't have, you know, as many ailments and stuff over the years. Dad was always like fit. Dad was always fit. So I remember in the morning, I think early hours in the morning, he was coughing, something like that. And we told him to go and see the doctor. Okay, so he went to go and see the doctor. The doctor sent him to A&E immediately. Wow. You understand? So whatever the doctor picked up, he said, A&E, go straight to A&E. And that's where it ended.
Wow.
We still don't have the full answers of what actually happened to Dad. But yeah, he passed away.
Do you think it had a lot to do with the passing of your mum and their relationship and how they were.
Definitely. I mean, mum and dad, they were married for like 40 years. They were childhood sweethearts. My mum used to call my dad uncle, uncle back in the day. So they knew each other for years. And it's amazing. I do remember growing up and seeing how they used to kind of do things together. I remember times where mum and dad were in the hospital. So mum would have been in hospital and dad was sitting next to her. And sometimes they would bicker and, the usual, but they wouldn't move. Dad would not move from mum's side. You understand? Dad did not leave mum's side. And to me, that was just beautiful. So when mum died, it really did hit him. I could sometimes I'll go there and make him some fufu or some food, and he just eat it. He just couldn't eat it. He'll be crying. He'll be in tears. The day that he died, he was actually sort of like, kind of, getting a bit more strength and sorting himself out to go back to Ghana and, stay there for a longer period of time. So he had all his boxes packed outside, sort of like the corridor in the house, ready to leave, when you've got everything sorted. So, I felt that he felt a bit more, upbeat about life. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and he passed away.
So, do you think you've had closure, Jen?
You know what, Denta? It's crazy. That's all I can say. I know that over the years, I've learned and tried to find coping mechanisms dealing with it, but it's still very, it's still very sensitive. I mean, I'm cool. I'm okay talking about it, and I'm actually comfortable talking about it because it helps me deal with it. I mean, one of the ways I was able to kind of, get through certain things was to have that notion or that imagination that, oh, mum and dad have just gone to Ghana, because they used to go to Ghana, 6 months at a time, come back. So, at the back of my head, oh, they were in Ghana. And even now, I still feel, oh, they've just gone away. So that kind of just helped me understand that they are somewhere else,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what days are difficult for you more? Is it when your mum's birthday and your dad's birthday is coming up? What days do you find difficult now?
I guess, mum's, dad's birthdays, anniversaries, the deaths of anniversary. But I think more so it hits when we come together as a family. Myself and my siblings were quite close, and when we come together, we're always laughing and joking and catching up and, reminiscing. So moments like that, especially when we come together, I guess family events, because mum and dad were both the eldest. So our house was a place where people would come, chill, party house, as they used to call it. Like key events, I guess, definitely. But then, I mean, you mentioned about it being on my profile. Sometimes it can just be odd days. I think it was Chrissy and another lady that I was just saying about 4 or 5 days ago, how I really miss mum and dad. And that just came out of nowhere.
Wow.
That just came out of nowhere early in the morning. But yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen, for sharing that. I think even a lot of the people that are watching are really touched by how you've explained everything. I'll go over to Chrissy. We'll come back to you guys. I'll go over to Chrissy now. So Chrissy is our Goober chair. She's also got this amazing card company. But I remember in 2009, when we started Goober, she came on board, and in about, I think, 6 months or so, she had to go. And then I found out that her mum passed away due to cancer. And I'll get Chrissy to also share about, that journey, and how she's also been able to cope. So thank you so much, Jenny. I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Hey, Chrissy, Chris.
Hi, Dee. How are you?
I'm good, hon. I'm good. So as I said to you before, or said on the screen, is that I remember your mum's death. I remember it because you were part of the Goober team, and then all of a sudden, you just had to go. Tell us about that journey of losing your mum, and how your dad felt, and the whole family, and how you were able to
So
deal
yeah, I was really excited. Yeah, I was just saying, I was really excited to start Goober, and then all of a sudden we had the shock. So we knew Mum had, again, she had been told she had breast cancer. Mum was still working, she was having therapy. And I remember her telling me, I was living in Kent somewhere, and she told us, I've got breast cancer. We were all very positive. We were like, okay, we've got it. Let's work with it. I used to go to her house. We used to cook liver. She changed her lifestyle. We used to cook different things just to help. And do you know, it seems so long ago now. After a few years, no, I think it was a year or so after treatment, they said she was in remission. So by that time, Mum had lost her hair, and chemo makes your hands a bit darker. So yeah, she'd gone through the mills, but she came out of it better. So we were all happy. And then she came to visit me with my dad, and I was like, "You okay, Mum?" She's like, "Oh, I've got a bit of a cold." And I was like, "Should you be going out? Are you okay?" She's like, "No, it's just a cold." And she went home that same day with my dad. And then I think it was a few days later, I got a call saying, the cancer's come back and spread. And she has to go to hospital. I hope I'm saying this, but yeah, so she went to a hospital in Portsmouth. I went to see her. And being a child of God, I was going there praying, like, you're going to be fine. You're going to come out of this fine. Not so long after, she was then sent to a hospice. We moved her to a hospice. And I think many people know that once people are in a hospice, it's kind of, we know where it's coming to an end. But I was still like, no, she's going to be fine. I used to go in with my dad and my sister to the doctors, like, she's going to be fine. What else can we do for her? We used to stay at the hospice with her in the evenings and sleep over. And I remember it was my night to stay over, and she was breathing really horribly. So in between the time, I remember it was Michael Jackson's birthday. So we were like, "Oh, it's Michael Jackson's birthday." She's like, "Oh, okay." I think he had passed away there. And that evening, she was breathing really funny, and I didn't like it. And my sister and my dad came in the morning. They had to go and get some stuff. So yeah, we'll be fine. But when we spoke to the doctors, they're like, this is kind of her taking final breaths.
Wow.
So my sister and my dad had gone. I had to call them back and say, it's not looking good, so you better come back. And just before they came back, she had gone.
Wow.
So it was very
You were by the bedside?
from time that. Pardon? Yes,
You were with.
I was. So that kind of. Go on. Sorry, I missed you.
No, there's a bit of a delay. Sorry. So I was saying that you were by her bedside when it happened.
Yes, I was. So I will always kind of remember those. That horrid kind of taking your last breath, and it was something so surreal, because I always thought in my head that mum would always kind of be there for every step of our lives, really. But yeah, unfortunately, that was not the case.
How are you and your family able to deal with it and continue to deal with it?
I think we're quite a strong family. I think I only saw my dad cry like once. He doesn't show that kind of emotion because men don't really. But when she was having chemo and he had to travel back and forth, it really took his toll. It took its toll on him. And you know, we spoke about it, but we didn't speak about it, if you know what I mean. It was very hard, very hard. Everyone knew her, so, and being a really joyful person. So for the family, it was a real loss. It was definitely a real loss. So how did we cope? I think we lent on each other. It took me a while. I did counselling many years after, because I felt that it was something that I hadn't really expressed properly. So yeah,
so you did counselling
which
years
helped.
after.
You
didn't do it. You didn't do it straight away.
Yes, years after.
Wow.
No, I think you have to go through that personal grief, not talking to people, trying to live life as best as you can. And then for me personally, I came to a point where I was just like, it's really affecting me, and yeah, I need to talk about it and get it off my chest.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to you. I want Gifty to share her story, and then we get, Dr. Pamela's input on this as a doctor and a psychologist. So I'm going to go over to Gifty now. Hello, Gifty.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know that your dad recently died, so it's quite fresh. I know that you just buried him, was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, we buried him January the 9th.
January the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
How was it like finding out that your dad had passed away? Were you with him at the time? Was he in Ghana? Was he in the US with you?
Yeah, no, he was, my dad was in Ghana. And for me, it's very different. Listening to the other ladies, their stories, at least they were kind of like around and the time of their passing of their parents. But for me and my siblings, that didn't happen for us because our dad and my mom stay in Ghana and we are all in the States. So it was just my mom and my dad in Ghana. Then my mom actually left for work that morning. Everything was fine. My dad spoke with my mom. My dad had his breakfast and everything. So everything was normal. Then he was just sitting. Then it happened. So, and at that time, my mom went to work. So my dad wasn't around. I mean, my mom wasn't around when that happened. So she just got a call. So it's just, yeah.
Wow. And how long haven't you seen your dad? Because he lives in Ghana, you guys live in the US. I'm sure you speak to him on the phone, but how long was it since you've actually, you were able to see your father?
I saw my dad 2019. So yeah, I saw him 2019, and it was a good time for my family and I because it was a wedding. It was one of my sisters got married, so it was a good time for all of us. So, and everything was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, he was here for a while as well too. Him and my mom stayed in the States for a long time because normally when they come, they just do like checkups and stuff like that. So he was here for a little bit. And so he left for Ghana. Both my parents left for Ghana. When was it? March 2020.
Okay.
and they left to go back to Ghana.
That's when they left to go back to Ghana. You know, we all know that one day all of us is going to pass away, right? But what really happens? What is that feeling like when actually it comes as a surprise, it comes as a shock that, you know, your father, who you know has raised you, whatever, has gone? You know, what's the reality versus, you know, what we know is going to happen?
For me, it's hard to explain it because I just felt like I wasn't there to say my last words to him, and I didn't accept it. I noticed like since I was here and I heard the news, I kind of told myself everything was okay and it's not true. Like I was kind of lying to myself till I went to Ghana and I noticed that it's real, it's true. He's not there anymore. Because one of the stuff that my dad would always do is every time any of us we go to Ghana, he always makes sure to pick us up from the airport. That was like his main thing to do. Like he always makes sure he's there to pick us up from the airport. And we really live really close to the airport. So that was one thing he really loved to do. So going to Ghana and just seeing my mom, just seeing only my mom, I just realized like, okay, he's not there. Then also another thing that he would always do is whenever like we are about to come to Ghana, he would always call and ask, "Oh, so what food do you want to eat?" Like he pretends, he acts like he's the one cooking, but he's not. It's my mom going to cook. But he will always like, "Hey, mommy, and Tene, if you anything up episode, catch me, catch me." So it's like, and he didn't say that to me, you know. So that was another reassurance, like, okay, my dad is really not there. So it's just those little things that for most people they'll be like, oh, that's nothing, but for me it's something because it's like that's the way of him showing us his love, you know. So yeah.
Wow. And what role does the community, family, etc., play in the process of grief? How have you found it?
You said what role? Sorry, was breaking.
What role does the community, your other family members, etc., play in the process of grief? How have you found, you know, other family members, the community talking to you about the death, the loss? How has the process been for you?
I don't even know how to address that because it's a little different in my family, but I just noticed that when something like this happens in the family, sometimes you kind of see the true colors of people in your family. So I felt like it was half and half. There was people that was very supportive, and there were some family members that were not supportive. And supportive in a way as like, you know, just doing little things like making sure my mom is okay, or like making sure we're okay, like making sure they're doing some of the errands for us. Like, plus we're not in Ghana and my mom had to start the process of the funeral before we got there. It's like some of my uncles and like, you know, my mom's friends and stuff like helped her do some of the stuff, you know, to help her ease some of the, you know, tension on her. But, you know, there's some other family members that didn't show any support as well. So I would say half and half.
Half and half. And do you feel as if when your dad was buried, you got some type of closure at all? Did you get some closure?
I'm sorry, it's breaking.
Do you feel that you've got some type of closure following your dad's burial?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. It was breaking, so I didn't hear you.
Do you feel that you've got some type of closure when the funeral was happening, when your dad was finally buried?
I wouldn't say, I don't know if I got closure because I just felt like I didn't spend enough time with him because half of the time my parents were living in Ghana and I was here doing like going to school and doing all that stuff here. So I would say it was more like a relief in a way, because I was lying to myself that he wasn't there, and the closure was more, I don't know how to explain myself right now because I feel like it's so fresh and I'm
Yeah.
still trying to like
Deal with it.
So
And how's Frida been? How's your sister been?
She's fine. She's okay. We are all like, managing as the day goes by. We try to be very strong, especially around my mom, because she's the only one, there. So we try to, be strong and, manage the day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll come back to you. I'm going to come back to Dr. Pamela.
okay.
For her to explain to us, how does therapy, counseling help in dealing with grief? Hi, Doc. You're on mute.
We should be used to this mute button by now. Apologies.
No worries at all. Thank you so much, Dr. Pamela, for joining me on tonight's show. Obviously, it's not an exciting show, but I think it's one worth speaking about, especially during this time where there is a lot of deaths happening, a lot of unexpected deaths. How does therapy, counseling help in dealing with?
Okay, firstly, I want to acknowledge all those who are listening, who hearing other people's stories have shed a tear or remembering losses of their own. Some losses might have happened 10, 15, 20 years ago or in childhood, but when you are given the opportunity to talk to other people or to listen to other people, it does open up our own feelings. And as human beings, we have this empathy that we feel for other people. So this is for those who are affected by grief, but also acknowledging that just hearing about other people's grief might also have an impact on you. And it's just to kind of remind us that we all have these human feelings, and if you are affected by this topic, that help is available, and I will go through that a little bit later. But Denta, you asked a question about how counselling can help in times like this.
Yeah.
So I think traditionally, counselling, when you mention counselling to a lot of people in our community, it's a bit of an alien concept. Counselling, I'm not mad. They'll just say, I'm not mad, I'm not crazy, I'm fine.
Yes.
But actually, counselling is just an opportunity to talk to somebody who may not necessarily be a relative or friend, somebody who might be a bit outside of your own social network or personal network. And what they are is trained to be able to help you kind of work things out for yourself. They're not trained to tell you what to do. They're not trained to tell you how you must feel. They're not trained to do anything other than give you a space that you can kind of try to make sense of what's going on in your own life. And I think traditionally some people have been hesitant to counseling because I think in the past people were a bit anxious about where does it go? Does it affect, if I'm going to get a job? Or if counselors are there just in the same way that if you are having a physical health problem, you'll go to your GP. Counselors are there to provide you the space. And again, I can't reiterate that enough. They give you the space. And often when we speak to friends, family, loved ones, they come with emotions towards us. And sometimes talking to people that we are close to, we don't always say everything we want to say, because there are times where we even want to protect their own feelings, and we don't always say how deep we might be feeling because we don't know how they can cope with what we're about to share. or they might not know how to help us. Or we might have had an experience with them where they haven't been very helpful, or we might not want to talk to them because we don't want to feel judged. Counseling and seeking an external support in that way kind of provides you almost like an anonymity. You can say whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, without the feeling of judgment. A lot, some people feel okay to talk to people in their life. Other people's may not have that kind of support. And just to say that, there's a wealth of support out there. I will give details later, which DENTAA can share on the screen. But I also just wanted to pick up something, the idea about closure. Grief and going through the process of mourning a loved one, it's not something you suddenly get over.
Okay.
You might get over a boyfriend. Some people might get over it quickly, others not so quickly. But when you lose a loved one, it's not something you get over. It's something you adjust. You live, you kind of learn to adjust with. And the process of grieving, for some people, they might expect that you cry. And if you don't cry, they will, why is she not crying? Why is he not crying? You've lost your mum, you must be crying. And if you are not, seen to be distressed, people might think, why is she not crying? What's her problem? Why is she, why are you not wailing? You go to the funeral and this one is screaming. Why are you standing there all poised? We all have different expressions of grief. We all have different ways with which we express ourselves. No one person's grief process is better than the other. What is important is that you allow yourself the time to do that. And you, as difficult as it might be, especially when there's people around you who are trying to tell you how you must feel or what you must do, get up, have a shower, eat this. Sometimes we just need a bit of space to just kind of come to terms with our own grief. For most people, that deep grief might have been the first time they've experienced such strong emotions. So they'll need time to kind of gather themselves. We all experience loss at some point in our life, and everybody's grief is valid. And again, when we are grieving the death of a loved one, which sometimes we use the word bereavement for, we're grieving the loss of a loved one, it doesn't always matter how close you were to them. And it doesn't always matter how distant you were. This was somebody who was part of your life and they are no longer there. That absence, that kind of gap, that hole. And for a lot of the relationships that our sisters have shared, these are significant people in their life. There isn't, there's not a tick box. I know that people might have heard of the term, stages of grief, anger, disbelief, bargaining, all of those different things. We all go through our expressions in very different way. So somebody might, start showing kind of serious anger. And anger is you're trying to work out why. Why has this happened? Sometimes you might think, well, that person down the road smokes 200 cigarettes a day. They live recklessly. Why are they alive? And why is my loved one who has been healthy and fit, why have they passed away? So there's all sorts of different things that goes through our mind when we lose a loved one. And I think one of the challenges during this period, where I think counseling and psychological therapy has got a lot of has got a lot of importance, is that because of the nature of the environment we're in, with all the public health measures and restrictions, where we're not having our elaborate funerals, or we're not following our cultural practices, the 1 week where you would have an extended community around you, and sometimes just having people around might make you feel comfortable. But actually, during this time of lockdown, we don't have that. So it's even affecting the way people grieve. It's affecting the way people will normally be supported. So counselors and psychological therapists who are still providing service provides for some people who don't have that network the opportunity to air their thoughts. And in England, you don't need to go out and pay for a counsellor. That support is there free for you, in the same way you would access your GP. There are online support. There are helplines. There's so many, and I will share that with you, DENTAA, so you can forward it on. But certainly, the purpose of counseling is to allow you to talk about it. I know that sometimes in our African community, and those who know me know that there's a certain word that really kind of gets me, that word of Enyeshi. Oh my God. If I hear Enyeshi, then I know you are trying to deceive me. I know you are trying to shortchange me. Your loss, it is she. Your loss is significant to you. And I know that sometimes we say things to be comforting. You know, God knows best. In time, you will feel better. We try to say all these helpful things. They are not always helpful to the person who's receiving it, but we don't know how to help. But sometimes we've just got to start from the point of asking the person, how can I help you? And they might not know, but just, you know, one of the ladies said, just, you know, having their youth pastor being on the phone just to listen to her even go, you know, just cry, just knowing that there's somebody out there that you can just be your authentic self and your authentic breathing self with is really, really helpful.
Okay. Do you think that, or is it normal to be prescribed with medications during this process?
Well, if you are prescribed with something, it means that a physician, a psychiatrist, your GP has assessed you. So, you know, you don't go prescribing yourself something. If you go to your GP, if you are seeing a mental health practitioner and they do a thorough assessment and you are prescribed something, for some people, when you are going through a process of grief, you might start to have, you know, experience sleeping problems. And with prolonged sleeplessness, that will have an impact on your thinking, your feelings, your body, your immune system, the way you function. If your physician feels that you need perhaps something to help you sleep, they might prescribe something, but it's not always that you are prescribed something. Seeking help is saying that I'm experiencing this extreme thing that is happening to me, this extreme feeling. There are thoughts, there are things that I'm no longer able to do. When grief gets to the point where it's affecting the way you live your life, then do seek help. It doesn't mean you're going to be prescribed a medication that you take orally. It might mean that you might be prescribed, say, a talking therapy, which is, again, a counseling service, a therapeutic service for you to just hear your thoughts. So it's not automatic that everybody will be prescribed something. It's not automatic that everybody will want to see a counselor. But what's important is that you know that there is support out there for you. Often there's a lot of support 24 hours a day, if not through your GP or psychological therapy, but even, you know, Samaritans are experienced at listening to people. And you might just want to pick up the phone and call them. And these are all free services that's available to people.
Okay. As a psychologist and a counselor, what process do you take people through when they're going through a sad, difficult season of their lives?
So when somebody accesses a psychological therapy service, what they will do is they will be assessed. And what the assessment will do is look at what their current needs are and look at what type of therapy will be best suited to them. But in terms of the person receiving it, I think probably the most important thing that that person will receive from their counselor, their therapist, is acknowledgement of how they are feeling. And sometimes I think people don't give themselves the permission to feel the way that they do. So the process is, you know, the same way that if you go to your GP, you will have an assessment of what's going on. You know, they might check your blood pressure, height, weight, blood sugar, all of those things. They do testing. A psychological therapist or counselor will also assess. They will talk to you and try and work out how you're feeling, where the feelings are coming from, where the challenges you are experiencing are, and then you work together with a plan on, you know, how you are going to get through. Again, it's not about getting over, it's what adjustments you can make, or what sort of tips. And some of the tips might be that they will ask you to keep a journal. You know, when you are feeling this way, write it, accept your feelings, don't hide the feelings, it is part of you. So one of the tips is about keeping a grief journal. And it might sound strange to a lot of people, but sometimes, you know, it's almost keeping like a calendar date and a calendar time. You make a time of the day. This time is dedicated to me going through my grief feelings. It's kind of like almost having a time with that person in mind. What would you like to tell that person? What would you like to say? You know, sometimes it's about, you know, somebody was very active in our life. That loss is quite significant because it might be somebody that if anything happened, you would want to talk to. So you need that time in your day and you have that conversation with that person on paper. It's very, very healthy. You write it down. If you were here, I would have liked to have said this to you. This is what's happened in my life. This is how I'm adjusting. And again, it's bringing yourself to acknowledging that that person is no longer there, but also the fact that that person will forever remain part of your life. Just because they are physically not there does not mean that they are forever absent. You know, this was and will continue to be a significant part. We learn to adjust. And unfortunately, during this period of restriction, many people would not have had the chance to say their proper goodbye, or they might not have had the chance to have the extended family support during a burial or funeral or during a 1 week. So just making that time is your time to have that intimacy and get your feelings and your thoughts expressed in the way that only you know how.
Yeah. And, you know, Doc, I mean, I'm just thinking about the situation where Gifty was like, you know, she felt some family members weren't helping and some were, and you're trying to grieve your father and there's conflict and all of these issues that happen when a loved one dies. How does one really cope with that when you're trying to grieve your loved one?
It would be great to think that during these times of challenges, that's when we all come together as one. That's when we all come together to support each other. Sometimes tradition and cultural expectation and people's ideas of how things should be gets in the way. And sometimes I think the intention is that they are trying to be helpful, but we know that some helping is harmful. It might be helpful to you, but not necessarily to the other person. You know, you bring somebody a box of chocolate because you want to, you know, treat them, but they have diabetes or they have an allergy. So your helpfulness might be harming them. So unfortunately, I wouldn't say, I'll retract that actually. We have traditions and sometimes tradition can be comforting, but sometimes it can also be restrictive. So, you know, it's great that I think it was Jennifer's family that, you know, they had an advocate who allowed them to go through the process and go through the burial the way they wanted to. Unfortunately, there are other family members who can make that process a lot more difficult. And I guess for somebody who is caught in the middle, it's difficult going through your own grief and it can be exhausting. What you want to do is grieve in your own way and do not feel bullied into doing that. If there are strong personalities in the family, there will always be an advocate somewhere. Find the advocate. Find the advocate who may either speak on your behalf or speak with you. At the end of the day, no one can dictate to you how you must feel, but we are a cultural people with cultural expectations. That cultural expectation won't bring back your loved one, but I think one of the key things we have to do is assert ourselves. Because, you know, you don't want that regret and you don't, you know, you're going through your really, really delicate need into doing something that you're unhappy with. So absolutely find an advocate. If there is an uncle or an aunt or an elder, or even sometimes a stronger and more assertive younger member of the family who will stand with you and say, actually, we don't want to do it that way, then do that. There is also an opportunity for you to have your own private funeral, your own private time, because that burial is a physical thing that you do. But actually, for the rest of your life, you make the time to look at how you can continue to live out the legacy of your loved one. And I'll give a personal example. I was raised by my grandmother, and when my grandmother passed away suddenly, she lived in Ghana and I was in England. And there was this huge sense of guilt that I didn't do for her what I should have or what I could have. She raised me. She was my mother growing up, essentially. And that guilt consumed everything that I did on a day-to-day basis. There was the guilt of, I'm now working, I have the income, I could have done this for her. I could have sent more money. That £100 or that money to buy cloth, that I could have sent that to her, or the expensive flight, that could have been her, and the elaborate funeral, she could have enjoyed that. So there was the constant guilt of what I could have done better. And it consumed me to the point where it affected relationship, it affected the way I lived my life. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm a psychologist. Let me try and psychologize myself. So I came up, it's amazing when you forget what you know. So I came up with a plan where I think it might annoy some of my friends, but I don't care, I still do it. And this is, 12 years later, I still do it. I call it my living eulogies. I don't wait for someone to pass away before I express how I feel about them. And for a community where we might not be as verbally expressive, I would spend 5 hours and cook for you, but to tell you, oh, you look beautiful, that one is not a go. I would spend a half a day and clean your house, but to be verbally expressive might be difficult for people. So I learned to do living eulogies. So what I would have liked to do for my grandmother that I can no longer do, I do for other people. So the kindness I would have liked to say to her, I say to other people. I would call random people and say, do you know, you mean this much to me? Or I would send surprise packages to people, because it would have it would have made my grandmother smile if one day she was sitting there and somebody brought her a goat or chicken or rice or something. What I couldn't do for my grandmother, I do for other people. And that means that I'm continuing my grandmother's legacy of kindness. She was an immensely kind person. So if you know me and think I'm sending people random gifts, it's part of my continuous effort to make sure that I don't leave the people in my life not knowing how I feel about them. And that helped me overcome that immense sense of guilt. But it's also a nice thing to do to brighten up somebody else's day. So where we have not had the opportunity to kind of resolve unresolved issues, we look at, in their physical absence, what can I do to resolve that in another way? And Gifty, to have been separated even by that geographical separation, it's sometimes it's not till you sit there and you go to Ghana and you suddenly it hits you that they are not there. Because as far as you are physically removed from them, it's almost as if you're living a falsehood that they're still there. And then you arrive in Ghana and no one's, and your dad's not picking you up. So how do we then look at practical things that we can do to make ourselves feel better? Because it's also important that during this period of time, we also remember their legacy. And there might be times where you want to laugh, and that is okay. There might be time where you remember a happy time and you want to be happy. It's perfectly okay to be happy. Don't let anyone think, why is she happy when her father's passed away? If there's a favorite song you shared, you enjoy that, play it, and just remember the father that you had and you have, not physically but in your memories. So our memories are really important during this period of time, and so are making sure that we are also physically okay. Neglecting ourselves won't make it any better. So make the time to look after yourself. Make the time to talk about it. Don't let anyone say your dad passed away 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I think it's okay. You've talked enough. You are now okay. If you're not okay, you're not okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, we have 15 minutes to go. If you have any questions for Dr. Pamela, if you have any comments that you do want to share, we will go through that and, try and answer as much as possible. And I just want to touch on the last part. Sorry, I had a mosquito go around. Okay, there's a mosquito running around. But I just wanted to touch on that guilt aspect of maybe you thinking, man, I don't know how Gifty's feeling, but I wish I'd gone to Ghana last month and, seen my dad. Chrissy, I don't know if there's any guilt that you felt, or Anna, if any of you want to share the types of guilt that you went through and how you were able to deal with that. You can unmute and speak.
I remember a scenario with my mum.
I'm nodding my head up. Yeah.
I remember a scenario with my mum, and sometimes I look back at this and think, oh, it's so silly. But just like Chrissy, I was with mum when she passed away, and I had to kind of, I was with her. She took her last breath, and I was the one that had to go and tell my dad and the rest of the family members because, I was there. There was a time, of course, when she had gone through the cancer, she had become extremely weak, and she couldn't eat properly, or she didn't have the appetite to eat. She was very weak, and food was the last thing that she wanted to think about. But then I remember one Saturday, and this was the Saturday before she passed away, and actually, in fact, the last Saturday that we actually had the conversation with her, she asked me to go and buy a house of cocoa. She really wanted it after not sort of eating properly for a long time. She really wanted it. And to be honest, for the life of me, I can't actually remember what happened, but I didn't get it. I didn't buy it. And I can't remember. I think there was a lot going on in the house. I can't remember. And she was a little bit upset with me, and that night she fell into a deep sleep. And that was it.
Wow.
That was it. So sometimes I feel that, it's just one of those things. But I mean, there's nothing you can really do about it. But it's something that I keep reminiscing on. So there are moments where you do feel guilty about certain things that you could have done.
I have.
Go on, Chris.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with technology. Hope you can hear me. I remember there was two things that I used to feel guilty about. One was not visiting enough. It was always on my mind that I should have gone and visited her more, gone home when I was living away. And the second thing is, I remember she made a comment that I didn't buy cards enough for her. And it actually, like birthday cards or Mother's Day, especially Mother's Day cards, I didn't really bother. The things like I wish I had done now. And subconsciously, maybe that's kind of why I started buying cards myself. That, greeting cards and just making sure you've got that message to send to people. It's one thing that I regret.
I'm going to go over to Anna quickly because her battery is about to die. But quickly, Anna, I want you to speak about the organization that you've set up, what it's all about, and why you set it up, and how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, so last year, October, I saw it fit to launch a company that actually helps young people that are dealing with grief. It's something that I feel like needs to be discussed. It needs to be shared. Light needs to be put on this, because although, you know, people look like they're, you know, walking through life okay, mentally they're not there. And right now we are trying to just push the agenda that, you know, it's okay to grieve. Be honest with how you feel, and just grieve honestly, because sometimes we kind of cover it up and say, and as the doctor said, "Enyashri," you know, "Bibia bebe, ebe," and all of that, and it just kind of covers up the actual soreness, the bitterness that you feel. And so we're just kind of giving this opportunity for young people to deal with that. And in October, we did a worship experience, which was a success. We had interviews, and we talked about the mental health aspect of it. And right now we have an account which is Shop by Unravel, so you can actually purchase the merchandise. And through my grieving process, as Doctor was saying, you know, writing down what exactly I went through, it felt like it was a diary to myself. I had to talk to myself. I was writing a diary a bit to my mum. You know, this is what happened today. And my book is almost full, and it's just honestly been a very therapeutic thing. And now I look at that book and I'm saying I'm grateful that I actually wrote down everything, because psychologically it was healing myself. So it's great that this has been an opportunity for me to just reach out to young people out there as well, that, you know, even when you're going to school and you've lost a parent and you're in school, and you know, the students, your friends, aren't exactly understanding of what has happened, and you're really kind of struggling. I hope and I endeavor to have I Unravel be put as a household name. And the company is I Unravel. So along the screen, you'll see our email. You can contact us. We have just started, so we are trying to just put our foot on it right now. And on Instagram, you can see us at I Unravel Limited, so I Unravel Ltd. That's all for me.
Thank you so much. And what would be your last words to somebody that is grieving at the moment as a young person? What would your advice be to them?
Absolutely. I mean, I lost my mum when I was 21, just about to turn 22. Right now, I am 25, almost turning 26. And honestly, I would say take your time. Take your time to grieve. Don't rush the process, because at the end of the day, I've spoken to, you know, aunties that are dear to me, and they're saying that I had to just hold it in, and now I'm releasing it. In 5 years later, it's not healthy. I want you to just be able to just release, be honest with yourself and say, I'm in pain. I need help. I need someone to talk to. Be honest. And I promise you, in later years to come, you'll find it easier to deal with it. It's something that you can't get over. That's something people need to understand. You can't get over it, but you can deal with it better.
Thank you so much, Anna. God bless you. She's a wonderful singer, guys. Listen, you need to follow her on her Instagram and Facebook pages. What's your Instagram and Facebook for people, your personal one?
Yes. Okay. So my personal Instagram page is I am Anna Effa. So I am ANNAEFAH, and Facebook is Anna Effa. You'll find it there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and God bless you, and speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Where are my guests? There they are. Okay. So I don't know whether there's any comments that we haven't gone through before I get everybody to say their last few words. But Doc has put out a few key points, guys, that you can go through as well on how to deal with grief. I'm just going to see if there's any comments that we need to share. Someone says, bless you, Anna. I've really enjoyed the show. Okay, let me go up. There's been a lot of comments right now. I think we have nearly 6,000 views on Facebook. There's a lot of people that are watching. Okay, let's see. Okay, Jennifer, can you read this? You're on mute.
Okay. Grieving over a loved one is a very tough moment. You literally go through the grief process, which are anger, denial, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But we do get healed with time. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of you?
Yeah. There's a lot of denial. I do remember um, opening the front door and being in shock that the world was still going by, cars were still moving, people were still walking around, you know. But yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Chrissy, you're on mute. Can you read this?
Absolutely true. For some reason, family members don't want to discuss the dead, so you are better off talking to a stranger.
Okay. Do you agree with this? Do you think that speaking to a stranger is better for you in your situation? Was it better for you to speak to the counsellor a few years down the line, Chrissy, rather than talking to family members?
I think it was a mix for me, but as I said, I did do counselling. I did find that easy because sometimes you don't, especially with my dad, I didn't want him to go through that again, through that grief again, because I don't know how he's feeling. Some days he's good, sometimes he's probably bad, and it's been 11 years now. So for me personally, it was a way just to relieve without burdening my immediate family. So yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go over to Gifty to share your last words. One, I mean, you're still grieving. Your one is extremely fresh. But what is your advice to somebody that is going through the same process of losing a loved one?
Oh, am I hello?
Yes, Gifty. What's your
Yeah.
last words? What would be your last words for people who are watching? Anybody that's lost a loved one, what would your advice be to them? And what words of encouragement or a message would you send out to them on how to deal with their grief?
Like, I would say that they shouldn't feel bad because everything happens for a reason. You should come together as a family and pray more, believe in yourself, and just manage it as day goes by. I know that's a life changing for death is a life changing for everyone, and especially when you're not expecting it, it's really hard to deal with it. But everything will be okay. You put God first. You just keep on working hard and just believe in your family and believe in yourself. That's what I would say.
Okay. Do you think the Bible has helped you more now as grieving for your process? Do you think the Word of God has helped you more now?
Yes, and I actually believe that my mom is really strong. She's a really strong lady, and with her, I feel like we are getting closer and closer to God in my family. My mom has always, even before this happened in our family, what we do is, as I said, my parents don't stay here; they live in Ghana, and my sisters and I are in the States. But what we do every time is we have a WhatsApp group, and it was my family, it was my mom, my dad, and my sisters. And most Sundays we'll get together and we'll pray. And before we started every Sunday, then later on it went to like the days of the week of when we were all born. So Mondays was for my dad and I. So my mom will call all of and we pray for the Monday borns in the family. Then Tuesday is for one of my sisters, and we pray for the Tuesday born. Then so that's what we were doing even before this bad news occurred in my family. So I would say my mom has been really a strong holder of my family, and this happening in the family, we are getting closer to God. And even though it's a bad news, we take it as, in a way of God showing us different parts of life. And we need to accept it and try to manage it as day goes on. So we're trying to adapt our lives, and we're trying to make it better for each and everyone in our family. So.
And Gifty, do you feel like sometimes you want to be alone by yourself and just cry alone, or are you feeling like, you know, there's so many family members that want to be with you and encourage you? Do you feel that sometimes you need that alone time?
Yes, I do. Like, I feel like sometimes I do need the alone time, and going to Ghana, I had a lot of alone time here, and going to Ghana, I didn't really have that, and which was fine because I needed the closure from my family, so it was fine. But coming back to the States, I feel like I am going to get the alone time, and which is for me to grieve in a different way and to understand and get closer to my dad in a different way. So yeah, sometimes I feel like I do need that alone time.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. I know how difficult it was for you to join, and I know that even Frida, you know, was unable to join because of, you know, what you guys are currently going through, especially so fresh. And you know, you've literally just buried your dad. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story to encourage others on your grieving process and how it can also impact on them and support them during their time as well. So thank you so much, Gifty.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. Jen, what would be your last words to people who are watching and who are also grieving at the time? There's a lot of people that have lost loved ones, family members, cousins, nieces. What would your response be to them, and any words of encouragement at this time?
I go back to what Dr. Pamela was saying in terms of being able to kind of just do what your body wants to do. So at times you wouldn't feel like crying. At times you might feel angry. What I know that I tried to do a lot of the time was suppress my feelings. But I think in the long run that probably affected me more, because I felt that, you know, sometimes I considered other people's feelings over my own, and I wouldn't always talk about certain things, or I'm, you know, borrowing them with it. But just to really evaluate and sort of like go with your emotions. How are you feeling? Sometimes you'll feel that, you know, you're angry and you'll snap at people that may be trying to help you. They, you know, they can't quite understand, but you know, it's also part of the process. So really, you know, assess yourself and just, you know, whatever your body's telling you to do. I do recall a scenario when I went to Ghana, and I can actually cry. Which seemed to be a bit of a taboo, because I think people were expecting me, you know, to sort of break down and so forth. I mean, I cried at moments, but the crying that they probably thought that they would see wasn't there. And I remember one older lady sort of came up to me and said, cry. You know, I mean, her reason for wanting me to cry was because she wanted me to sort of grab a man. You understand? So she was kind of encouraging me to cry for like guys to see me, and, you know, craziness. I was like, what? But anyway, yeah, just whatever your body is saying or doing, you know, just go with the flow, because yeah, it's a long process. It is a long process, and just, you know, reach out to communities, to the people that you have. Counseling, yes, definitely. You know, whatever support you get. I didn't have counseling then. It's only probably about 8 years later that I actually went and did counseling. You know, it was, you know, my sister recommended it. I mean, she had gone through counseling herself at some point, and she recommended it, and it was so helpful. It really was. You know,
so that means sometimes, Doc, it won't come immediately for you to do counseling. It may come 10 years down the line or 8 years down the line, where you feel like, actually, I want to speak to somebody about how I'm feeling.
That's right. I mean, and it might be that you might hit a certain milestone in your life, and then that grief will hit you a lot more. So, for example, you might have your first child, or you might be getting married, or it might even be something like an ice cream you once shared, and then suddenly you go somewhere and then somebody's eating the same ice cream, and then you become a blubbering wreck and they think, what's wrong with this girl? There is no time limit to grief. There is no time limit. There may be times where you're okay and you're giggling, and your friends around you will be nervous because are they happy or are they going hysterical? And then there may be times where it's quite intense. And again, the advice always is you are legitimate and your feelings are legitimate, and you have every right to express your grief. People might not like it. People might not like the way you do it, but it's not their grief, it's yours. But if it gets to a point where it's affecting the way you live your life, it's affecting the way you cope, seeking professional support is helpful, because it allows you to kind of clear your mind and even think about things that you might not have even thought about. So it's a journey that will have its peaks and its troughs.
Thank you so much, Doc. And finally, Chris, I know that you've got your card store. You're talking about that guilt that you felt when your mum says, you need to be. I wish you bought me more cards, and now you started your own card business. Through that, several years later, even though it's been something that's been on your mind, how can you advise somebody or tell somebody of how to deal with grief, or any advice that you can give to somebody that's watching the show this evening?
Sorry, you broke up, Dee.
What's your advice to somebody that's going through grief at this time?
If I heard you correctly, I think just as the doctor said, there's no limit on grief. Even when we were doing this show, I was texting Jen saying, you know what, it was harder than I thought it would be. And for me, it's been 11 years. It's, it will hit you every now and again, but just take your time. Do you what you need to do, and just go through it. Just go through it.
Thank you so much, ladies. I really, really appreciate your time, and for you to be able to express your feelings right now. It's been a very emotional show, and we've all had to kind of keep things in and look the part, even though we're grieving inside, as we do. But thank you so much, Dr. Pamela. Thank you, Chrissy, Gifty, Jen, Anna, for all coming on the show. I'm going to wrap up, and I'm going to speak to you guys after the show. So please don't go. I'm going to put you down, and then we'll talk in 1 second. Guys, I hope that you have truly enjoyed the show. It's not the show that we had planned for this Sunday, but I definitely think it's a show that has impacted on your life today, on your view of how people grieve. Everybody grieves differently. And so we must respect that. We must also give the family time and space to also grieve. And you might be grieving now. You might think, oh, I don't need a counselor. I'm okay. You're strong. You're yasan toi, whatever it is. But you never know. In a couple of years' time, you may need, a counselor or psychologist to speak to. So please make sure that you do that. Everybody's different. Don't compare yourself to somebody else, because everybody grieves differently. Even with the ladies that have been on the show, you can tell that everybody's done theirs differently. But before I go, I must say a big thank you to people that support the show, World Dream It. Again, you can go onto worlddreamit.com and send money back home to a loved one. Vesta London Beauty, this amazing lip gloss and pencil. Go online and purchase one. It is absolutely amazing. She calls it the lip glaze. And then she's got the lip pencil to go with it. So guys, go online and purchase that. Now, I have undoubtedly the biggest and best shitter ever Okay, and guys, it is the bomb. You can have it with kenke, you can have it with wache, you can have it with jollof, like everything. It goes with everything. It is perfect, okay? And then she has spice as well for jollof rice and soups and everything. Guys, go online, prodigyfoodsco.com. Go there and purchase one. And give me your view, because I've gone through about 10 of these already. Yes, 10 of these already. Don't judge me. Yes, I love my shito. So make sure that if you love shito like I do, you go online and get that. And again, make sure that you get some nice shea butter from my daughter, Princess Aria. Shea butter, ariasheabutter.com. She's also got black soap, which is good, and sapo for all of you that are unable to come to Ghana and get your sapo. Make sure that you go online and get that. And I mentioned about Chrissy's cards, amazing cards, different, unique. Go on to Etsy. That's the website there. Go on there and grab one. I think I've got a private message down here. Let me see if there's anything that I need to say before I wrap up. Okay, and Dr. Pamela says, for those who do not know how to support someone who's grieving, just offer your 2 ears and offer practical help, like send them food, call them, and listen. And I think that this COVID-19 actually has taught us that we need to call people more. We actually don't know what everybody's going through. Give somebody a call, give a loved one a call. I'm actually going through a guilt thing myself at the moment, that I feel like I should have reached out to somebody and I didn't. I did get to meet them, and now they're gone, and it's just, you know, it's kind of affecting me at the moment. But I'm just trying to, as much as possible, deal with it as well. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be a friend as well. You can grieve over friends, long distance friends, or even sometimes hearing somebody's story, you just feel grief. And I think that, you know, that's also something that we have to go through. Guys, thank you so, so much. We will look forward to next week, Sunday, God willing, when we'll talk about the beautiful Sam Mensah, the impact that he's made on our community, the legacy that he has done. I mean, since his death, he's been on BBC, ITV, whole big newspapers, the Mirror, and everything has carried out this tragedy of this great young guy who's only 36 or 37 that's passed away. But we will talk about him next week, Sunday, God willing, and give you more information about what's going to happen with his funeral and how it's going to be done once the family sits down and finalizes everything at the 1 week. Guys, I can't stress the importance of you wearing your mask, the importance of you social distancing and washing those hands and using those hand sanitizers. For me, the washing hands is really, really important. The hand sanitizers, yes, when you don't have a sink or whatever around, but please, 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 as much as possible, COVID is so, so real, and it is killing a lot of people. And I just want to make sure that you really fully understand the impact of this COVID-19. Don't lose guard. I know sometimes you see a loved one, you just want to give them a hug, but please, 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 please. There's a lot of people also that don't have any symptoms, and they're just walking around, and they're the ones that actually passing a lot of these things around. So please, I pray that everybody who's watching today will be fine. Everything will be fine. And I'm praying that, you know, this COVID-19 will pass. It will surely pass. Thank you so much for watching the DENTAA Show. God bless you all. And I will see you next week. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you share to another loved one. You never know who needs it. God bless you. Bye-bye.